Welcome to the Head Trash Show. My name is Alexia Leachman and I'm the founder of Head Trash, home to the new and unique head trash clearance method that removes unwanted negative thoughts, feelings and emotions quickly and effectively so that you can achieve clarity, confidence and contentment in your life. My goal with this podcast is to teach you how to create some headspace by helping you to unpick what's blocking you and sharing some tips and how-tos for clearing it. Tune in every week as I share simple strategies to help you to achieve confidence and clarity in your life and business. To find out how to clear your head trash quickly and effectively using our unique method, pop over to headtrash.com to get our free download and subscribe for our free head trash clearance updates. And now for the show. Hello and welcome back to the Head Trash Show. This is me, your host, Alexia Leachman. Thank you so much for joining me today. Now, today's show is all about breathing and how we can use our breath to be healthier, to think clearer, and to be less stressed. Because yes, it is possible. And to help me get to the bottom of how we can do all this just by using our breath, I've got on the show Michael Townsend Williams. And the reason why I think Michael Townsend Williams is a brilliant guest to help me understand breathing better is that he's not only is he a yogi, so he's learned the art of breathing brilliantly for yogic practice, but he's also launched an app that helps us to breathe better. So I'm going to be speaking to Michael in a bit, but before I do, I just want to have a couple of announcements from here at Head Trash. We're going to be doing a lot more work with companies going forward, and if you're a company that wants us to come into your business and help you to de-stress your employees and clear the head trash, then do let us know. But in preparation for that, we're building our team of head trash coaches. So if you're a coach, an NLP practitioner, or somebody that works in the field of human change and you would like to learn what we do here at Head Trash and be part of our team of elite coaches, then stay tuned because we're going to be launching a training and mentoring program very soon to get you guys up to speed on our technique and how we do stuff so that you can join our army of coaches that go into corporate. So if that's you, then please don't hesitate to email me a little line at hello@headtrash.co.uk indicating your interest, and I'll be able to send you more information to tell you more about what we're going to be doing. But I'll also be updating new listeners very soon on more about that. Anyway, so back to today's show, which is all about breathing. Now, I've got Michael Townsend Williams on the show today, and he's brilliant. He knows so much about breathing, and he also tells us about his app, Breathe Sync, which since recording this interview, I've been using like crazy, like pretty much addicted to it, because it's brilliant to pair with doing things like head trash clearance. But before I witter on too much about that right now, here is a time that I spoke to Michael about how we can breathe ourselves to health through better breathing. Hello, Michael, and welcome to the Head Trash Show.
Hi there, Alexia.
Now, today we're going to talk about breathing because I've learned over the years the importance of breathing, but I was really surprised early on when somebody just looked at me and said, "You're just not breathing right," and how breathing, by improving your breathing, you can really start to become much happier and in a much better place. So, but I really don't understand any of that. So, Michael, what has breathing got to do with our head trash and our well-being?
Well, there's a number of ways of looking at it, but I think the first thing to say is that breathing is obviously a natural thing. We do it all the time, so we don't actually have to learn how to do it. But what we notice when we're looking at people and their breathing is that they start off as babies and young children breathing naturally. So, for example, if you put your hand on a baby's tummy, you'll notice that the tummy just rises and falls with their breath, and they're in a relaxed, optimal state until it all goes wrong and they start screaming and shouting. But they naturally breathe from their bellies. And young children, when I've gone in with my children to their schools to teach yoga and mindfulness, we see that up to about, I'd say, 5 or maybe 6, children naturally breathe from the belly, and they have a natural, relaxed breathing rhythm, which means that they can get into a place of being relaxed and happy quite easily and naturally, because that's the way that the body's designed. But then about at the age 7, I would say, when stress starts to kick in and children start to worry, they increasingly start to breathe into their chest. Their breathing becomes more shallow. And rather than using their breath as a way of reducing their stress or anxiety as it appears, their breathing tends to reflect it and actually exaggerate their stress and anxiety. So their breathing ends up making it worse rather than better. So that starts at about, I'd say, 7 or 8. And then obviously through school, often you'll have a sports teacher that will say, breathe up into your chest to get more oxygen in, so you've got more energy to be more fit and do more sport. And then as you go into your early work life, you stop losing track of your breathing, so that gets worse. You become more stressed, you worry about relationships, you worry about work, you worry about finances. And people find that a slightly stressed state becomes the norm. So they lose track of what normal, natural breathing feels like. And I think, as you alluded actually before we came on air, commonly when people actually learn to breathe well again, they can actually feel sort of quite lightheaded and quite surprised by how it feels, because it's been such a long time since they actually connected to that natural breathing place. So the first thing to say really is breathing is a natural thing, and actually breathing well is also a natural thing. It's just that at an early age we get out of the habit. So we get into a habit of breathing up into the chest, shallow breathing, focusing on breathing in rather than breathing out. And we lose that connection between how we feel and how we breathe. And actually how we breathe directly affects how we feel, and how we feel directly affects how we breathe. And the thing that I find very interesting about breathing is that out of all of the systems in the body, whether you're talking about digestion, cardiovascular system, nervous system, all of these systems in the body that go on, you can't directly control them. You can't directly say, hey, I want to digest this food better than I did yesterday. You don't have conscious control over it. The only system you actually have conscious control over is your breathing. So the reason our breathing is designed in the way it is because breathing is a way of actually regulating all the other systems of the body. So when you're breathing naturally and well, your heart is running well, your digestion's working well, your nervous system is balanced, and naturally you feel healthier and happier and more centered.
So you mentioned just then, there's a lot of things that you've mentioned that I'd like to talk a little bit more about, but you mentioned that one thing we learn about is we start focusing on breathing in rather than breathing out. So can you just expand on that a bit, and what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So to try to keep this as simple and accessible as possible, when we breathe in from a physiological point of view, we're breathing in, we're taking in oxygen into the body, and when we breathe out, we're getting rid of carbon dioxide. So when we're focusing on breathing in all the time, that's obviously a great thing, and we've talked about this gas exchange, and we want to get more oxygen in, so we want to breathe in more. But if we haven't breathed out fully, we're only using the top half of the lungs. So, for example, if you don't breathe out fully, you've still got old air at the bottom of the lungs. So no matter how much you try to breathe in, you can only fill the top half. So you think by breathing in more all the time and not breathing out so much, you're going to get more oxygen in, but you're not.
And so actually you're keeping in, are you actually keeping in some of that carbon dioxide? Is that what's taking up the space, or is it just old oxygen?
I would call it old air.
Yeah.
Old air, because we don't want to get into too much of a chemical conversation. Okay. But it's old air. It's not fresh air, so it's got less oxygen in and probably more carbon dioxide. Yeah. You're quite right. But if you think about breathing out more, if you breathe out fully and you completely empty your lungs, if you just relax, all of the lungs will fill up again. Naturally, you won't have to put any effort into it. So one of the first things that we teach is that actually to breathe out more than you breathe in, and what we call an active exhalation and a passive inhalation. Right. So that can be a challenge for people, because most people have the habit of an active inhalation and a throwaway passive exhalation. So from a physiological point of view, if you actually want to get more oxygen into the body more quickly, so if you want to be more effective at breathing, it's better to focus on breathing out more rather than breathing in more, even though that might be counterintuitive. So that's one of the first reasons to focus on breathing out more than you breathe in. The other key thing to mention is that breathing is directly linked to the autonomic nervous system. So the autonomic nervous system is the part of your nervous system that operates subconsciously. So you're not aware of it happening, but it's going on all the time. And there are two branches of the autonomic nervous system. There's the sympathetic branch, which actually triggers the fight or flight mechanism, the stress response in the body. And then there's the parasympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system that helps you to rest and digest and triggers the relaxation response in the body. And it's now been shown in research that when you're breathing in, the sympathetic branch is more active, and when you breathe out, the parasympathetic is more active. So you can look at it this way. When you're breathing in, you're getting a little bit more stressed, and when you breathe out, you're relaxing.
Right.
And there's a reason why the body systems are in this sort of slightly unbalanced state all the time. So they're getting a little bit stressed, a little bit more relaxed, a little bit stressed, a little bit more relaxed, because the body physiologically needs to respond very, very quickly to things. So suddenly if you stand up, all of the blood pressure changes in your body, and the body needs to respond to that very, very quickly. So the system needs to be slightly unstable so that it can react really, really quickly.
Right.
So if you think of breathing in as being a slightly stress-inducing thing and breathing out being a relaxing thing, if you're focusing on breathing in more, you're getting less oxygen into the body because actually you're not getting rid of all the old air at the bottom of the lungs. Secondly, you're triggering the sympathetic branch of the nervous system, so you're making yourself more stressed. Your heartbeat's probably going up as well. So the first thing that we would try to teach people is breathe out more, focus on lengthening and deepening the exhalation so that you start to trigger the body's natural relaxation response.
Now, one thing that I learned, I attended a Tony Robbins event, as I'm sure many people have, like years ago, where we covered a bit of breathing. One thing that I learned, which, just seems silly now, but that the lungs are sort of almost triangular shaped, and at the top they're much narrower than they are at the bottom. So when you are breathing in your chest, you're actually just trying to fill the smallest part of your lung. Whereas if you breathe into your belly, you'll actually be able to take a much deeper breath because there's a lot more lung capacity down there.
Absolutely.
And so that can be, even just knowing that kind of can help you to remember the right way to breathe. Because sometimes I used to forget. I was like, well, which is the right way to breathe again? Is it in my chest or lungs? But just remembering that they're triangular can help you to remember that actually it's in the belly you need to be breathing, because just remembering that, if you're not very savvy about it, can be very difficult to try and remember to stay on track, can't it?
Yeah, and I think that you're coming to a key point here, that ultimately people need to experience this and to actually practice it and see how they feel as a result of it. And people are often really quite amazed how just breathing from their belly mindfully for 2 minutes completely changes how they feel, and it's a big wow. Yeah. It's a big wow. I had a guy at a workshop last month, a top internet entrepreneur in Bath, near where I live, who just didn't sleep well. He'd wake up every night, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, go and do some work, couldn't get back to sleep. After 2 one-hour sessions working on his breathing, he sleeps. Yeah. He sleeps because he knows how to get himself into that relaxed state more easily. He sleeps because he's sleeping more. He has more energy. He's less depressed. He's happier at work. He's happier with his family. But the key to it was relearning how to breathe well again.
And it's interesting. I mean, the guy that I run some of my courses with, Chris Milbank, we do a lot of breathing training on some of our courses. And because it's so important in terms of helping you to maintain a great state, but he's helped several people stop smoking as a result, just by helping them to breathe better. And I think the interesting thing about smoking is that the reason people love it so much and find it hard to do, it's probably the only time that they're breathing properly, when they're taking in that big lungful. But unfortunately, it's just got the tobacco smoke in with it. But they're not taking in that level of, they're not breathing in the same way when they breathe normally. And what they're enjoying the hit most is the hit of all that lovely air that's coming in. I like to say lovely, but the act of breathing as opposed to...
I can relate to that. I used to smoke, and one of the things that I sort of missed when I gave up smoking was I used to like the fresh air that I got, because people would kick you out of the house if you were smoking. you would be going outside and you're getting all this lovely fresh air. If you're at a party, suddenly you're there, the stars, fresh air. It's a surprisingly sort of nice place to be, even though you're using that to smoke. And the other thing about smoking is it's actually quite a mindful activity. I mean, it actually does bring you back into the moment. You're connected to your hand, the cigarette, your mouth, the feeling, the breathing. So there is a sense of mindfulness about smoking. And in fact, I think that's what Alan Carr sort of used in his sort of How to Give Up Smoking, where one of the techniques is you do actually just keep smoking, but you do it one after the other, and you do it very, very mindfully. And after a while, you start to realize the effect it's having on how you're feeling, the taste in your mouth, and you sort of exaggerate that mindfulness and that attention to what you're doing, which actually ultimately helps you to realize that it's actually not really that good for you, and you don't want to keep doing it.
You mentioned that where we learn to breathe badly, around about 6 or 7, and when I was young, I had asthma, and I think that's where I got my habit of breathing badly, where that sort of that desperate need for air when you can't bring it in, got me to breathe into the chest. And I'm just wondering, if you're somebody who may be suffering from something like asthma, is there a different way that they can be breathing to maybe help with things like asthma?
I'm not a medical expert. However, I do know a number of people that have had chronic asthma that through doing breathing and more advanced pranayama techniques from yoga have completely got rid of it. It's definitely linked to people's nervous system. So my wife actually has asthma, and if she's anxious, that will trigger asthma. And yes, unfortunately, the problem with the habits that we create is that once you've got a habit connected to the breath, a bad habit connected to the breath, you've probably done it a few million times. Yeah. So to unravel that is no mean feat. And I think that the one thing that we have to say is that although it's a natural thing to breathe from your belly and to focus on breathing out a little bit more, to get back into that habit needs a commitment. Because you can learn the technique. I can teach someone the technique in minutes. But if they don't practice it regularly, they won't get into a place where it becomes the natural response in the body. So suddenly when you're having an asthma attack, if you've got a natural response, which is to breathe from your belly and focus on exhaling and to spend 4 or 5 minutes breathing mindfully in that way, once that becomes a habit and you do that repeatedly, the body understands that and responds more quickly. But if you don't do it enough, then you'll revert back to your old pattern.
I remember reading somewhere, and maybe it's the Tony Robbins book actually, Awake the Power Within, where he mentions a 2-4-1 pattern where you breathe in for 2 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, and then hold that for 1 second, and where by holding that state of no breathing, you're kicking in your lymphatic drainage system, which is about detoxing. Is that? I mean, that's an old book now, so I wonder whether that's kind of been updated.
I can believe that. In yoga, we tend to use a different sort of ratio where you breathe in for 1. And then you hold for 4 and you breathe out for 2, and you develop that ratio. So that ratio could result in you breathing in for 4, holding for 16, and breathing out for 8.
Okay.
So this is sort of 1 to 4 to 2 ratio. And you start working with that, and then you cultivate retention at the bottom of the exhalation and retention at the top of the inhalation. And there's a whole sort of science around what happens in that. But I think that for me, keeping it very simple, for me, there are 3 keys to breathing well. The first one is breathing from your belly. The second one is breathing in and out through your nose. So your nose is designed for breathing. The hairs in the nose clean the air. The chamber behind the nose warms it to the right temperature. And by breathing out through your nose, which a lot of people don't talk about, if you breathe out through your nose, you can control and lengthen your exhalation a little bit more easily. And that's linked to the relaxation response. That can be key. So breathe from your belly, number 1. 2, breathe in and out through the nose. And then thirdly, emphasize the exhalation. So exhale a little bit more than you inhale. Ultimately, you don't need to do that. If you're a balanced, relaxed person, you don't need to exhale a little bit more, but most of us are a little bit stressed all of the time. So breathe from your belly, breathe in and out through the nose, and focus on the exhalation. So if I was teaching breathing, there'd be the first 3 keys to breathing well.
Yeah.
And then I would talk about other aspects, like you're talking about, that holding the retention. So, for example, what happens with there is a natural retention at the top and the bottom of the exhalation. So even without a technique, if you just observe yourself breathing, you will notice at the top of the inhalation there's a slight pause, and then you exhale. There's a slight pause, and then you inhale. So the first thing would be to become aware of that natural pause. It's not a technique, there's a natural pause there. And if you notice what happens in that pause, as well as the breath pausing slightly, your mind also pauses. So what's interesting for me with the pause between the breaths, if you slightly lengthen them, you'll notice that your mind will also slow down as well. So I think that's probably why Tony Robbins would bring that in. Yes, it works at a physiological level. I don't know about the lymphatic drainage system, but for me, from how you feel, if you observe those pauses between the breaths, they also help you to have a mental pause. And if you're in an anxious state, that can be very key.
Okay. So if somebody's stressed, if somebody's having a bit of a moment, a bit of a maybe an anxiety attack, or just a real moment where they're feeling really stressed, what can they do in that moment when it comes to their breathing to try and bring them back into a place where they can think clearly again?
Well, the first thing I would say is stop whatever you're doing. So if you're at the computer, turn away from the computer, go and sit down on a chair or a sofa somewhere. If you can lie down, that's a great thing to do. Lie down, you can have your knees up with your feet on the floor so your lower back is supported. So either sit comfortably or lie down. Turn off your phone, turn off anything around you that's going to interrupt you, and try to give yourself 5 minutes at least. And in that 5 minutes, you want to start breathing from your belly. You want to be breathing in and out through your nose, and you want to be focusing on your exhalation. If you find it difficult to get breathing into your belly, which people often do when they're in an anxious state, place one hand on your chest, the other hand on your belly, and notice how the chest is trying to move. To get you into breathing from your belly when you're in an anxious state, you might need to press quite firmly with the hand on the chest to keep the chest still, and increasingly try to move more and more of your breathing into your belly. Once you've established that you're breathing in your belly more than your chest, you might want to put a big book, like a yellow pages, although they've got a bit smaller now, so maybe you might need a couple of yellow pages, or a heavy book, and put that on your tummy. So that gives you a simple way of feeling and remembering to stay in your belly when you're breathing. And if you can lie down like that ideally, or if you're sitting down just with your hand on your tummy, just stay with breathing from your belly, breathing in and out softly through your nose, emphasizing your exhalation. So when you get to the bottom of the exhalation, just draw your tummy in a little bit more to lengthen, and then relax as you inhale. And if you do that for 5 minutes, you will feel better.
So, Michael, if someone's mega stressed, what can they do in the moment to help them to get back to a good place where they can think clearly again?
Well, when you're mega stressed, what happens in your brain is that your prefrontal cortex, which is at the front of the brain, it's the part that helps you to think clearly and make good decisions, is actually switched off. And the amygdala, or the lizard brain, takes over. That's a sort of emotional part of the brain. So when you are mega stressed, no matter how hard you try, you can't think clearly and you can't make decisions, because that part of the brain that does it usually isn't there to help you. So what can you do in that moment? You're stressed, you really don't know how to think clearly, you can't think clearly. So what I suggest, the first thing you do is you take a big, deep breath, because if you start to deep breathe, particularly focusing on your exhalation, you then elicit your body's relaxation response. So as you breathe out long and as deeply as possible to trigger the parasympathetic branch of your autonomic nervous system, which is what is going to give you that relaxation response. And as your body starts to relax, and sometimes that can just be 3 deep breaths, focusing on the exhalation, you relax, your brain then starts to engage the prefrontal cortex again, so you can start to think, and then you can make some choices about what's actually causing that stress and what you can do about it.
So you've just launched an app, haven't you, Michael? Can you tell me a little bit more about it?
Yeah, well, the app is called Breathe Sync, so that's breathe with an E on the end, sync. And it's a biofeedback breathing app for iPhone that helps you to get in the zone really quickly. So when you're in a stress place, we know that breathing can help you. But what Breathe Sync does is it actually times your breathing with the rhythm of your heart to have that effect more quickly and more effectively. So it's like a biohack.
Right, okay. And so by syncing your breathing with your heart rate, does that start to sort of bring about a much more relaxed response in your body then?
Yeah, so if you can imagine, when you're breathing in, your heart rate is actually going up. And when you're breathing out, your heart rate is going down. And when you're in a very stressed state, that sort of connection becomes a bit erratic, so your systems aren't aligned.
Okay.
So by Breathe Sync, sort of synchronizing the rhythm of your breathing with the rhythm of your heart, then you start to get into a more coherent, more synchronized, more integrated place where your body can respond more quickly to the demands being put on it.
Right.
So you could say that you're improving your resilience to the sort of things that life's going to throw at you.
So when you said biofeedback, what I hear from that is that it basically feeds back based on some of what's happening in your body in that moment. So it's tracking you somehow.
Yeah.
And then feeding that back to you to help you improve. Is that right?
Absolutely. So the way it works is that you put your finger over the camera lens on your iPhone. The camera then monitors the change in colour in your finger as your heart is beating. So we can actually pick up your pulse rate through your finger.
Wow.
Analyses how that pulse is actually increasing and decreasing as you're breathing, and synchronising the rhythm of your breathing. So there's like these circles on the screen that get bigger and smaller, so you can actually breathe in time with your physiological rhythm coming from your heart. And you should do that for at least a minute, but we recommend about 3 minutes.
Okay.
And then it gives you a score at the end of that of your present physiological state, what we like to call WQ, or your inner well-being quotient.
Right.
So this is like an objective number that you can track, so you start to understand when you're stressed, when you're relaxed, when you're at an optimal state. And also shows you how by breathing with Breathe Sync regularly, you can actually improve your own physiology.
Now, I love the idea of having a number when I'm doing my, anything that's going to help me get back to meditation or breathe better or, focus on my breath, anything like that. The idea of having a number now is getting me really excited because I love measuring stuff. I love a good number. But what is this number based on? What's this inner well-being quotient? How have you come up with it?
Well, there's this concept called heart rate variability, which is now established in sports science and in medicine. And there was some research done in Denmark where they analysed the heart rate variability of various people by their age. And we've taken that data and we've sort of applied the same thinking behind IQ. So as in IQ, 100 is average and below 100 is below and above 100 is above average. It's the same thing for WQ. So rather than giving you sort of numbers that don't mean anything, with WQ, once you put your age in, if you're getting a score under 100, you're in a sub-optimal state. And if you're getting scores over 100, you're starting to be more optimal.
So does that mean that, is there going to be any fluctuation in that, because as we have our rhythm of cycles throughout the day where we might feel, a bit of a post-lunch crash, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, absolutely.
Will our well-being quotient change throughout the day anyway? So do we need to be mindful of that as well?
Absolutely, and you'll notice on the app that it will be going up and down throughout the day and throughout the week, but there's a sort of trend line.
Right.
And you want to see that trend line is moving slowly upwards. What you'll find is it'll start going down if you're about to be ill or you're stressed or maybe not getting enough sleep. So it can sort of be an early warning system for you that you need to do something about that.
Okay, and so basically this is like a two apps in one thing. On the one hand, it's helping you to focus on your breathing and to maintain maybe a meditation practice. And on the other hand, it's giving you an indication as to your inner well-being and, clues as to whether you should take it easy, whether you're on fighting form that day or
absolutely.
On that kind of level as well. So this sounds like it's quite a powerful app.
Yeah, I think that for me, what was important was that combination, so that you can either use it in a therapeutic way, so that you're using it to reduce stress or improve focus or improve sleep, but also you're getting feedback on what that means to your physiology. And you'll also notice that if you do use it regularly, the breathing technique itself can raise that level.
Okay. And so you mentioned that, we can use our breathing to affect our physiology. Could you just tell me a little bit more about that? Because I didn't fully appreciate maybe. I knew that breathing was important, but I didn't fully appreciate how we can use breathing so much, or how powerful it can be in helping us to manage our own health, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I suppose if you think that, in your body you've got a number of different systems. You've got your digestive system, your hormonal system, your endocrine system, your lymphatic system, the cardiovascular system, all these different systems in the body. But the only one that you can consciously control is your respiratory system, your breathing. And your breathing is linked to your heart. So when you're breathing in, your heart rate is increasing. When you're breathing is decreasing. Equally, as you breathe in, you're triggering the sympathetic part of your nervous system, which gets you ready to deal with life's challenges. As you breathe out, you're triggering the body's relaxation response and the parasympathetic part of your nervous system. So as you control your breathing, you're also controlling your heart system, and you're controlling your autonomic nervous system. And in turn, they also then control other systems in the body. So by controlling your breath, you really are making that connection between your mind and your body.
Right.
So often, this is a big question that often comes up, is that people have issues in their body, and people say that it's all in your mind. They're going, how can my mental state really affect my body? And it's through the breath. If you're mentally stressed, your breathing becomes erratic. That then sends erratic signals to the heart, which sends erratic signals to the rest of the body, and your body suffers as a result. Once you start to master and control your breath, you're starting to master that control of the body through the mind.
Right. Makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think
that's how we're designed to work. That's how the system is designed to work. It's just that we live in a world where often we're getting stressed about small things all the time. We're having this fight or flight reaction to the minutiae of life rather than when a tiger is actually about to eat us. And so we're overreacting. We're constantly living in an overreacted, stressed state. And hopefully Breathe Sync will go somewhere towards rebalancing that and showing people that if you can reduce the stress in your life, then you can make much better decisions in your relationships. You can make much better decisions in what things you want to buy or not buy. You can get some better sleep. You can be more creative. And you can really start living the life that you want to live.
Absolutely. So you mentioned heart rate variability. So can you just go back and just explain that a little bit more for me?
Yeah, so at the moment you have elite athletes will use this measurement, heart rate variability, to measure whether their training is working. You'll find that there are senior executives that will have stress management consultants that will use heart rate variability as a way of analyzing their stress levels. It's also used by cardiologists, and increasingly it's been used by researchers into a number of different conditions. And we've created an index based on a type of heart rate variability that was used in some research in Denmark, and we've mapped those results against people's ages and created an index that we call the well-being quotient, WQ. And so 100 WQ is average for your age. Over 100 would show that you're over average in that moment, and under 100 that you're under average. So when you've done your Breathe Sync session, the actual session itself, where you're breathing in sync with your heart, is bringing you into an optimal coherent state. So you'll be feeling more focused as well as be feeling more relaxed. but you'll also get a measurement of where you are. And by knowing that, you can then see the improvements that you're making to your well-being through other lifestyle interventions. And also you can then plan your day accordingly. So if you're getting a low score, that means that you need to take it easy. If you're getting a high score, then go for it, do whatever you want. Commonly, I'll find that, I actually had a low score this morning. I got 80 this morning, so I'm going to try and have as lazy a day as I possibly can. I might even have a snooze this afternoon. And it's amazing. Often it's a sign that you need to sleep a little bit more. You need to eat some healthy food, maybe do some exercise. So as well as being a way of connecting you to your breathing and being with you wherever you are with your phone, so that you can actually tune in with your phone rather than tune out. It also gives you an idea of an objective idea of your present state of inner well-being.
So that sounds like a pretty invaluable thing to have on you if you care on any level about your well-being. That heart rate variability.
The way I try to use Breathe Sync is that I'll do three minutes in the morning, which is often a replacement for meditation. So if you find that sitting down and meditating for 10 or 15 minutes every morning is something you like to do but you can't get around to doing, I find like a 3-minute Breathe Sync session in the morning really gets me focused and centered for the day ahead. And then in the day, when I suddenly find that things are going a bit wrong and I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed, I can use Breathe Sync as a way of recentering myself. I have a friend who's the creative director of an ad agency. He'll use it before he goes into a presentation or a pitch when he's feeling his nerves and he's feeling a bit anxious. And then at night, I tend to use it just before I go to bed, maybe 15 minutes before I go to bed. I just lie down, spend 3 minutes. I put some headphones on, so there's a really nice sound that was recorded by Sting's keyboard player, actually. He recorded the sounds for me.
Oh, really?
So at night, I'll tend to lie down with headphones on and just listen to these sounds so that I follow my breathing. And then I go off to sleep in a centered, relaxed state.
Well, having heard that, I'm like, well, I'm going to be buying that straight away. So I think, the whole idea, I want to be meditating more, and it's finding if I can boost the, I find a way of measuring, I guess, the effect, not the effectiveness of meditation, but making it a bit more real and tangible, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you find with this measurement is it naturally goes up and down. So in a day, I might start the day at 80, I might go up to 110, I might then go down to 90. So there's a natural change. And people shouldn't take one reading too seriously. But what's more interesting is there's a trend line on the tracking chart on the app, and you want the trend line to be slowly moving up. And if it's not, then that means that maybe you need to do some changes, get some more sleep, do some exercise, improve your diet, do some head trash maybe.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's another thing, that we haven't even looked at yet, is people like yourself using this measurement so that you can measure your client before and after your intervention, and you can show them demonstrably that actually their physiology has changed as a result of the work that you've done.
Oh, wow. I'm going to be using that straight away. I'll be testing on myself first, obviously, as I do with all my head trash clearance work. But, that's definitely, if there's another way of measuring it and showing the impact on the body, because, you can't argue that the fact that your well-being, what's going on in your head, affects your body on so many levels and brings about disease as well. And so if you can find a way of measuring that and preventing it from happening in the first place, my goodness, this is sounds like a really good combination, and a way of measuring it all. So this is just brilliant. Is there anything else you'd like to share about breathing before we go? Because I'm just conscious of time. Is there anything else that you think people need to know about breathing to be?
I think for me that we've talked about how breathing can help you relax. So for me, there's it can obviously help you relax and make you feel better. So if you learn how to breathe well, you will feel better. But I think the last thing to mention is also help you think better. Because when you're in a stressed state, your body switches off the prefrontal cortex. So the front part of your brain is switched off by you. And you go into the amygdala, you go into the animal brain, you go into the stress, fight or flight response. So you can't think clearly. So when you're in that stressed state, you're trying desperately hard to solve some issue in front of you, and you can't do it. The reason you can't do it is not your fault. Your brain has just switched that part off. So if you then breathe deeply for a few minutes, you calm the stress response down, the prefrontal cortex can start working again, and you can think more clearly. So breathing well is not just about feeling well, it's also about thinking well.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you for sharing that, because I'm sure there's, a lot of people listening that just get that brain fog, that utter confusion where they just can't think straight, where they feel totally overwhelmed, and just taking a moment to just breathe and have a moment.
And one of the thrusts of all the work I do, I do my well-doing coaching, work with mindful productivity, as well as doing my mindfulness training as well. It's about helping people to do things better, because commonly what people do is they learn relaxation or breathing techniques, but they continue to live a stressed out day at work, and then they use those techniques after work to make them feel better. And I'm trying to encourage people to use them during work. That's why I call it well-doing, because well-doing is well-being for people that do. If you learn to breathe well and realize that your breathing is always with you. I think we talked earlier that stress is everywhere. Luckily, so is your breath. So your breath is always with you, whatever you're doing. If you learn to use it well, then you can feel better at any time of the day. You don't have to wait till the end of work to do it. You just close your eyes, spend a few minutes breathing, and then go back into the task that you're trying to do.
Yeah, brilliant. That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing so many brilliant insights and juicy bits of info about breathing that I think is going to help. It's certainly going to help me, and I'm going to definitely buy that BreatheSync app and start measuring the impact on the body of doing some head trash clearance. And I'm going to be sharing my results on future episodes, I'm sure.
Hey.
Now, Michael, where can we find out more about you and your work? If we want to find you online, where can we find you?
Okay, well, the simple thing is to go to mtownsendw.com. That links to my About Me page, which has links to various things I'm involved in. If you want to find out more about well-doing, which is my corporate and individual coaching work, that's welldoing.co.uk. If you want to find out about my yoga and mindfulness work, and also where my blog, the DoBeDoBe blog, is situated, that's StillWorks.org.
Okay.
And then if you want to find out more about BreatheSync, the app, that's breathesync.com. That's BreatheSync.com.
And that's in the App Store, isn't it?
And that's also in the Apple App Store. So it's only available for iPhone at present, or iPod, and iOS 7. It's $6.99, which, as we said, is actually a lot less than some of these more expensive products around the £99 mark. And I would love to hear from anybody if they try it out, how they get with it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'll be sharing all those links and more in the podcast, where the podcast is hosted on the Head Trash blog. Sorry about the quick cutout out of that audio there, but we had an enormous trouble recording this podcast, with technology letting us down every single step of the way. So I do apologise if there were jumps in the audio quality and that kind of thing. But yes, all the information that Michael shared is on the Head Trash blog, and you can find out details of where you can find him. Now, since I recorded this interview, as I mentioned at the beginning, I've become a huge fan of BreatheSync, and I've been using it before and after carrying out head trash clearance sessions on myself, as well as using other techniques that that form part of my toolbox, such as the TAT technique and emotion code. And I have noticed that when I use BreatheSync before and after a clearance session or any inner work that I do, I notice a massive jump in my well-being quotient. And typically my well-being quotient might jump between 20 and 30 points as a result of doing some emotional clearing. So you see, when you do some emotional clearance and you relieve that inner stress that's happening in your body, you really can bring about an improvement in your well-being. So this app is firmly made itself one of my go-to favourite apps. And if I have clients that I see face to face, then I encourage them to use the app before we start work, so they can see for themselves the difference that the work that we're doing together is having on them. So I would urge you to check it out. That's BreatheSync. You can find that in the App Store on iTunes for your iPhone. Okay, I hope you enjoyed today's show. It's a little bit longer than normal, but I think breathing is something that we don't know enough about, and certainly well worth delving into to fully appreciate a bit more, because it can have such a huge impact on our health and well-being. And I think It's totally underrated in its ability to be able to bring about a positive change in our lives. So I hope that you enjoyed the show, and I will see you again next week. Bye for now. You've just been listening to Alexia Leachman here on The Head Trash Show. If you enjoyed the show, I'd really appreciate you leaving a review here on iTunes. And don't forget to pop over to headtrash.com to get your copy of our free 5 Steps to Clearing Head Trash guide. So now stay tuned for upcoming episodes and more tips and how-tos for clearing your head trash and reclaiming your headspace. Until next time, bye for now.